Donald J. Trump is, well, he's without question one of the most talked about, controversial, and I think profoundly disruptive figures in modern American history.
Absolutely. He's a billionaire businessman, a global celebrity, and of course, the 45th president of the United States. His life story just seems to defy logic at, almost every turn.
And that is exactly why we're here. For you, the learner, we've synthesized a lot of source material on his career. And our mission today is to trace the complete arc of his professional life.
Right. From a New York real estate developer with that brassy style, all the way to the White House. We want to understand how he engineered such an unprecedented rise.
So this deep dive is built around 4 core themes: ambition, controversy, power, and legacy. We're not just going to recite history here. We're analyzing the strategies, the personality traits that let him just continually shatter norms.
First in business and then later in politics. We've drawn from a pretty comprehensive narrative detailing his whole arc. It's a chronological journey, but we're going to slow down at the key inflection points.
To really look at the origins of his style.
Exactly. The origins of the style and the sheer magnitude of the disruption he could generate.
Okay, so let's unpack the foundation. To really understand the man who would run a global corporation and later the country, we have to start with his formative years.
Our sources start us in Queens, New York. Donald John Trump was born June 14th, 1946. He was the 4th of 5 kids in a genuinely wealthy family.
And that wealth came from his father, Fred Trump.
Right, a hugely successful real estate developer.
Yeah.
Fred specialized in building mid-market housing, mostly in Queens and Brooklyn, and he often used government subsidies to do it.
So Donald was observing this aggressive and successful business model from day one.
Pretty much. That fatherly influence was obviously critical. But the courses also highlight that even from a young age, the characteristics that would later define him were already there.
You mean the immense confidence, the almost aggressive competitiveness?
That and a tendency to push boundaries, which is why the source material's emphasis on discipline is so insightful. Because of that difficult, sometimes rebellious nature, at just 13, his parents sent him away.
To the New York Military Academy.
Right, and that's a massive shift for a teenager.
What the sources stress is that this rigid, structured environment, it didn't crush his confidence. It reinforced it, but channeled it.
It blended his natural aggression with a sense of order, of hierarchy. It was a crucible for developing a kind of command presence.
And his academic path reflected that ambition too, right? He didn't just stay put.
No, he started at Fordham University, but then he strategically transferred to the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
Which is, of course, one of America's most prestigious business schools.
He graduates in 1968, and he's poised to take over the family business. But he was already aiming far, far beyond what his father had built.
Which brings us right to how he built his own empire. He didn't stay in the family business for long.
Not at all. In the 1970s, he joins his father, but almost immediately he decides that, the stable, profitable world of Brooklyn and Queens apartments was just too small.
He wanted the global spotlight. He wanted Manhattan.
And the strategic shift was key. Fred Trump was methodical. Donald was, audacious. His strategy involved taking these huge, often highly leveraged risks.
Buying up struggling properties in prime locations.
Exactly. And then he would execute a radical, often very controversial transformation. He didn't just renovate, he branded.
Think about those iconic early achievements, like the Grand Hyatt hotel deal. He had to navigate these incredibly complex negotiations with the city, with the struggling railroad, just to get the site.
Or the battles he fought over building Trump Tower. These weren't just business deals, they were public spectacles.
And by the 1980s, the sources show that strategy had succeeded beyond measure. His name wasn't just a signature on the building.
It was the brand.
And that brand symbolized gold, opulence, power. A very visible, very unapologetic kind of American wealth and excess.
But here is the critical analytical nugget that often gets lost. The success was, it was decidedly mixed with public failure.
Right. He expanded so rapidly.
Way too rapidly. And that led to severe financial distress. He famously filed for corporate bankruptcy multiple times in the 1990s. We're talking casinos, hotels, huge public failures.
So how do we reconcile that, these massive public failures, with the image of untouchable success he was projecting at the same time?
Well, what's fascinating, based on the material, is his ability to reframe the narrative. For him, failure was never an end. He even called it fuel.
So he treated corporate bankruptcy not as a personal ruin, but as a strategic business move.
Precisely. It was something that allowed him to shed debt and rebuild immediately, often while keeping control and, crucially, the brand name. That mental resiliency is absolutely key to understanding his later political survival.
That reframing of failure, turning a negative into a story of fighting and coming back stronger, that feels like the perfect bridge to our next segment, his mastery of media.
By the early 2000s, he had figured something out that most traditional CEOs hadn't.
That attention is the most valuable currency. That attention is power.
He'd mastered the New York media for decades, but the real turning point, the moment he became a national celebrity figure, was the launch of The Apprentice in 2004.
That show wasn't just entertainment. It was a strategic rebranding campaign on a national scale. It took all the core themes of his real estate brand.
The goal, the dominance, the big decisions.
And it made them accessible to millions of viewers who had never, set foot in Trump Tower.
And "You're fired" became an immediate cultural catchphrase. Millions tuned in every week to watch him be the ultimate arbiter, the judge who decides success or failure. The sources really emphasized that this transformed the nature of his influence.
It was a monumental power shift. He went from being a rich businessman you might read about in the finance section to a household name.
His personal brand now had immense influence over cultural perception. He wasn't just selling buildings anymore. He was selling the idea of success and dominance.
An idea that bypassed all the traditional gatekeepers.
And that celebrity influence is what created the political opportunity. He'd flirted with running for president for decades. But when he finally announced in 2015, the political establishment, well, they were mostly dismissive.
That dismissal seems to have been exactly what fueled him, though. His campaign just utterly defied every political norm.
He leveraged that unfiltered communication style he had perfected in business and on reality TV. He spoke directly, aggressively, and often in these raw, emotional terms.
I mean, if you connect it back to his brand, this was just the ultimate extension of the Trump product. Unfiltered, high stakes, controversial.
And his central promise, "Make America Great Again," it just resonated so deeply with voters who felt ignored by the political establishment.
He wasn't just running against other candidates. The source material highlights he was consciously running against the political class, against the elites, and against the media.
Positioning himself as the ultimate outsider.
The necessary outsider, ready to tear down a failing system. And this strategy created a profound dichotomy in the country.
Oh, absolutely. Supporters saw his aggressive style as strength, as authenticity. Critics, on the other hand, saw it as pure chaos, instability, even bigotry. He used controversy to just dominate headlines.
He got the constant attention he had always sought. The result was, genuinely stunning. On November 8, 2016, Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton.
The world was shocked. The political science community was certainly shocked. It was an unprecedented event.
He became the first U.S. president with zero military or political experience.
For his supporters, it was a revolution, a rejection of the status quo. For his opponents, it was often described as a democratic crisis. But either way, America was polarized like never before.
Which brings us to the presidency itself. The sources characterize this 4-year period as, and I'm quoting here, fast, loud, and consistently controversial.
That sounds about right. It was a high-energy administration that was in constant friction with existing institutions. Let's look at the policy. Domestically, he moved fast on key promises.
The tax cuts.
Sweeping tax cuts. Supporters praised them as a massive boost for business. Critics condemned the resulting national debt and, how it seemed to favor corporations.
And the judicial appointments were a massive point of power. He successfully appointed 3 conservative justices to the Supreme Court.
Fulfilling a long-held goal of the Republican base.
Yeah.
That reshaped the court's ideological balance for decades. And then, of course, there was the focus on immigration and the border wall.
On the foreign policy front, it was just as disruptive. He challenged long-standing relationships, actively pushing back against traditional NATO allies.
He prioritized renegotiating trade agreements, pulling out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, redoing NAFTA into the USMCA, and initiating that significant trade confrontation with China.
But the way he communicated all this was maybe the biggest transformation. He weaponized Twitter. He turned a social media platform into the primary communication channel for the Oval Office.
Which raises this really important question about political power in the digital age. By using Twitter, he just bypassed the entire traditional media structure.
No more newspapers, broadcast news, formal press briefings.
He just spoke directly to his base, uncensored, often in real time, and this created intense turbulence. It allowed him to set the national agenda almost instantaneously.
And that unfiltered approach fueled, relentless chaos. We saw government shutdowns, daily battles with the press, high staff turnover.
And ultimately, 2 separate impeachment proceedings.
Then came the ultimate test of leadership, the COVID-19 pandemic. The source material highlights this as the moment his style was most severely scrutinized.
America became sharply divided, even on the response measures. Supporters praised his focus on keeping the economy open and the rapid vaccine development.
Critics, on the other hand, condemned his administration's communication on scientific consensus, on masks, and the overall management of the public health crisis.
The sources really portray the presidency as just constantly operating at maximum velocity, generating both high-impact successes and profound friction.
And that velocity carried right through to the very end. Which brings us to our last segment. His time in office concluded with more controversy than perhaps any modern presidency.
In 2020, he lost his bid for re-election to Joe Biden.
And rather than concede, the sources confirm he launched this extensive effort to challenge the results, claiming widespread election fraud.
That unprecedented refusal to accept the Democratic outcome set the stage for one of the most shocking moments in modern U.S. history.
The Capitol riot on January 6, 2021, the scene of the U.S. legislature being breached by his supporters, it just shocked the nation and the world.
He was subsequently impeached for a second time, the only president in history to face 2 impeachments, though he was later acquitted in the Senate.
So his presidency officially ended in controversy, yes. But the source material is quick to point out that despite all the challenges, his influence, and the movement he created,
It wasn't finished.
So what does this entire arc mean for his legacy? The sources conclude that Donald Trump fundamentally changed American politics. Forever.
He shattered presidential norms, he completely reshaped the Republican Party toward populism, and he proved that a total political outsider could win the highest office.
He is undeniably a figure who inspires this extreme, almost unprecedented loyalty.
And equally extreme opposition. He exists at the very apex of American division.
So the final verdict of history is profoundly split. Will he be remembered as a necessary disruptor who shook up a complacent system?
Or will he be remembered as a divider who deepened the political and cultural fissures in the country? Maybe irrevocably.
That transformation of the political landscape, that's the key takeaway for you, the learner. Because when we look back over his entire career, the celebrity, the aggressive branding, turning failure into fuel, mastering direct media, it suggests Trump is more than just a man.
He's a manifestation of modern political forces, a movement, and a symbol. His success in politics was almost prefigured by his success in business and entertainment.
He was a master of media long before he was a politician.
Exactly. So given that unprecedented trajectory where celebrity brand recognition translated directly into immense political power, what does the success of a reality TV star tell you about the modern relationship between fame, media mastery, and political power in America today? The sources suggest understanding that link is the biggest challenge the American political system is currently facing.